What happens when a man successfully convinces the world that he's dead, only to be discovered alive, thousands of miles away, under a completely different identity? This is the unbelievable story of Nicholas Alahverdian, a former child welfare activist whose life became one of the strangest true crime cases of the 21st century. From his troubled childhood to his rise as a public advocate, from allegations and criminal investigations to an international manhunt, a fake death, and eventual imprisonment, Nicholas Alahverdian's story reads more like a Hollywood movie than real life. And in June 2026, his remarkable and controversial journey finally came to an end. Let's take a closer look at the life, crimes, and death of Nicholas Alahverdian. Nicholas Alahverdian was born on the 11th of July 1987 in Providence, Rhode Island. His childhood was marked by instability and hardship. Throughout his early years, he spent time in Rhode Island's foster care system and later became an outspoken critic of the state's child welfare agencies. According to Alahverdian, he experienced neglect and mistreatment while under state supervision. These experiences would later shape much of his public identity and activism. As a young adult, he became increasingly involved in political and social issues. He spoke publicly about reforming foster care programs and often criticized government agencies that handled child welfare cases. Many people initially viewed him as a passionate advocate fighting for vulnerable children. At the time, few could have imagined the controversies that would later surround his name. During the late 2000s and early 2010s, Alahverdian gained attention throughout Rhode Island. He regularly appeared in media interviews and positioned himself as a reform advocate. His ability to communicate and attract publicity helped him gain supporters. Some viewed him as a courageous survivor who transformed personal tragedy into public service. He also became involved in legal battles connected to the child welfare system and frequently spoke about his experiences. For a period, Nicholas appeared to be building a career based on advocacy and public influence. However, behind the scenes, legal troubles were beginning to emerge. Over time, allegations and criminal investigations began to overshadow his activist image. Authorities linked him to various legal disputes and criminal accusations. One of the most serious developments involved sexual assault allegations dating back to 2008 in Utah. Investigators eventually reopened old evidence and continued pursuing the case. As pressure mounted, Alahverdian's public reputation began to change dramatically. Former supporters started questioning his credibility, while law enforcement agencies continued their investigations. In early 2020, an astonishing announcement appeared. Reports surfaced claiming that Nicholas Alahverdian had died after battling non-Hodgkin lymphoma. An obituary was published. According to those reports, he had passed away on the 29th of February 2020. News organizations repeated the story, and many people believed it. Tributes appeared online. Friends, supporters, and members of the public expressed condolences. For a brief period, the world believed Nicholas Alahverdian was dead. But there was a problem. Investigators weren't convinced. Some former associates suspected the death announcement wasn't genuine. Questions quickly began to emerge. No death certificate was publicly produced. Several details surrounding the reported death seemed unusual. As authorities looked deeper, suspicion continued to grow. Law enforcement agencies started examining whether Alahverdian had actually died. Investigators discovered information suggesting he might still be alive. The situation soon escalated into an international investigation. Federal authorities analyzed records, communications, and digital evidence. Eventually, investigators concluded there was a strong possibility that Nicholas Alahverdian had staged his own death. If true, it would represent one of the most unusual fugitive cases in recent memory. Then came the breakthrough. In late 2021, a man receiving treatment for COVID-19 at a hospital in Glasgow, Scotland, attracted attention. The individual identified himself as Arthur Knight. He insisted he was an Irish man and denied being Nicholas Alahverdian, but investigators weren't convinced. Authorities examined fingerprints, tattoos, and other identifying features. The evidence pointed toward one conclusion. Arthur Knight was actually Nicholas Alahverdian. The discovery made international headlines. A man believed dead had apparently been living overseas under a different identity. The story fascinated audiences around the world. What followed was years of courtroom battles. Alahverdian repeatedly denied being the person authorities claimed he was. He insisted his name was Arthur Knight. Judges reviewed evidence including fingerprints, photographs, and distinctive tattoos. The evidence was overwhelming. Scottish courts ultimately ruled that the man claiming to be Arthur Knight was, in fact, Nicholas Alahverdian. The proceedings became widely publicized. Observers described the case as one of the strangest extradition disputes in recent history. The combination of a fake death, multiple identities, and international legal proceedings drew enormous public interest. After numerous hearings and appeals, authorities approved his extradition. In January 2024, Nicholas Alahverdian was returned to the United States. The move represented a major victory for investigators who had spent years tracking him down. Once back in America, he faced the criminal charges that had followed him across continents. For the first time in years, he could no longer avoid the legal process. The Utah cases moved forward. Prosecutors presented evidence connected to sexual assault allegations dating back many years. The cases were heard separately. In 2025, juries convicted Alahverdian in 2 rape cases. The verdicts marked a dramatic conclusion to a legal saga that had stretched across multiple countries and more than a decade. Judges imposed lengthy prison sentences. The man who had once escaped authorities through an elaborate deception was now serving time behind bars. While incarcerated, Alahverdian reportedly struggled with ongoing health issues. Court records and media reports had previously documented various medical concerns. His health became a recurring topic throughout his legal battles. Despite years of controversy and public attention, his life was now largely confined to prison walls. The extraordinary story that once dominated headlines appeared to be nearing its final chapter. On the 25th of June 2026, Nicholas Alahverdian died while in Utah state custody at the age of 38. According to prison officials, he died from complications related to pre-existing medical conditions after choosing to discontinue treatment. His death brought an end to one of the most unusual fugitive stories in modern American criminal history. For years, his name had been associated with controversy, deception, legal battles, and international headlines. Now, the story was finally over. Nicholas Alahverdian leaves behind a deeply complicated legacy. Some remember the young activist who spoke about problems within the foster care system. Others remember a man convicted of serious crimes who attempted to escape justice by faking his own death. His story serves as a reminder that truth eventually catches up with even the most elaborate deception. Despite years spent creating alternate identities and attempting to evade authorities, investigators ultimately uncovered the facts. And in the end, the man who once convinced the world he was dead became known worldwide for the extraordinary lengths he went to avoid accountability. The life of Nicholas Alahverdian was filled with controversy, mystery, and dramatic twists. From child welfare activist to international fugitive, from a reported death to a shocking reappearance, and finally, from conviction to his death in prison. His story remains one of the most unbelievable true crime cases of recent years. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more celebrity biographies and cause of death stories.